Here's a question that sounds like a riddle. How can a country deport one of its own citizens? I mean, it sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. And this whole story, it really starts with just one simple number.
Just 5.
5 years old. That's the age of a U.S. citizen who was recently deported from the United States. And you're probably thinking, wait, that doesn't make any sense. A U.S. citizen deported? How on earth does something like that even happen? Okay, so to get our heads around this, we need to go to Austin, Texas. And we need to talk about the little girl who is right at the heart of all this. Her name is Genesis Gutierrez Castellanos.
So on January 11th, Genesis, who is an American citizen by birthright, born and raised, was put on a plane with their mom, and they were flown to Honduras, a country she'd literally never set foot in before.
Look, before we dive into all the legal stuff, and believe me, it gets complicated, let's just take a second to understand who we're talking about. Who are the people at the center of this? So you've got Genesis, she's 5, an American citizen. And then there's her mom, Karen, who's 26. And up until all this happened, they were just living a pretty normal life in Austin, Texas. This is the only home Genesis has ever known.
And this quote, man, it really gets to the heart of it. When someone asks Genesis what she misses most about home, she didn't talk about anything complicated. She talked about what any 5-year-old would miss. Her cousins, her friends from class, her kindergarten teachers. Her entire world, everything she knew was right there in Austin.
So the big question is, how do you go from a regular day in kindergarten to an international deportation? Well, according to her mom, Karen, the whole thing on January 11th went down unbelievably fast, and it came completely out of the blue.
And hearing her mother describe it, it's just chaotic. She says she kept telling the ICE agents over and over, look, my daughter was born here, she's a citizen. But she says it just didn't matter. They just took them both.
So let's walk through how this happened. It really unfolded in a few stages. First, the agents show up at their house. Then, they take both of them into custody. But here's a weird part. They weren't immediately deported. Instead, they were driven about 80 miles away to a hotel and just held there for almost a whole week. And then, they were put on a flight to Honduras.
And during that entire week they were held, Karen says they were completely cut off. They couldn't talk to a lawyer. They never went before a judge for a hearing. Nothing. And this lack of any kind of legal process is a really critical piece of the puzzle here.
All right, so this is probably what you're thinking right now. How is any of this legal? It just sounds wrong. To find the answer, we have to dig into the legal paperwork, the why behind what immigration authorities say allowed this to happen.
Okay, this timeline is everything to understanding the legal justification. You have to go back to 2019. Way back then, an administrative deportation order was issued for Karen, the mother. Now, that word administrative is super important. It means the order often comes directly from immigration officials, not from a judge after a court hearing. And here's the kicker. Genesis was born after that order was already on the books. So she was born a U.S. citizen in Austin, while her mom had this old order hanging over her head. Fast forward to this year, and that's when ICE decided to act on that 2019 order.
And this is where it all collides, right? You've got these two totally opposite legal realities in the same family. On one side, you have Genesis. She's a U.S. citizen. She has every legal right to be here, period. On the other side, you have her mom, Karen, who is not a citizen and has this official order saying she has to be removed. So you have the child's citizenship rights crashing right into the parent's immigration status.
So where does this leave them? What happens now? What's the plan for a 5-year-old American citizen who's basically been sent into exile?
Well, right now, Genesis is trying to navigate a country that's completely new to her. She's cut off from her friends, her school, everything she's ever known. I mean, think about it. She's essentially a stranger in a strange land, even though she has a U.S. passport in her name.
The family is definitely trying to fix this. And here's a crazy twist. Karen's application for a visa was apparently already in the works when they were deported. So the plan now is to have another relative bring Genesis back to the U.S. But just stop and think about that for a second. For this little girl to use her rights as a citizen, she has to be separated from her mom. That's a truly impossible choice for any family. And really, this whole heartbreaking story boils down to one massive, complicated question. Where do you draw the line? Where does a parent's immigration status end and a child's fundamental rights as a citizen begin? It's a question that gets right to the heart of citizenship and family, and there are absolutely no easy answers.